各位傳媒朋友早晨。
Good morning, friends from the media. Welcome to the Tuesday press briefing by the Chief Executive. The Chief Executive will first speak before answering questions. Because of the epidemic, please keep your social distance and keep your masks on. We'll first hear from the Chief Executive. Good morning, friends from the media and people of Hong Kong. In the past week, there has been some changes in the epidemic situation in Hong Kong that caused us concern. From the time when we saw a sharp drop in the number of cases in the fifth wave to a period of plateau of 200 to 300 cases daily, we now see that the number of cases has increased to 4 to 500 cases. Yesterday, it stood at 543 cases, above the 500 mark. This has caused us concern, but it's difficult to tell at this stage that there is an increasing trend or the emergence of a new wave. However, given the number of increasing cases, as well as an increase in the relevant indicators that include the viral load in sewage under our surveillance system, the real-time effective reproductive number, as well as the point prevalence, as well as number of cases reported by schools, we need to closely monitor the situation. Our vaccination rate is at a rather high level. The symptoms of Omicron are rather mild. We see another set of indicators that give us insurance, that is the number of serious cases as well as number of fatalities. As at last night, in hospital authority facilities, the number of admissions has been dropping. 367 people. Their condition being critical or serious. 18 people. 6 people require intensive care treatment. The number is rather stable and is a lot lower than the figure we saw previously. The future is rather opaque. We can't tell how it will pan out. So I can say with certainty that from now on till the 30th of June, whether it is restrictions on social distancing measures as well as arrival requirements, there won't be any relaxation. In other words, we don't plan to tighten them, but neither do we plan to relax them. We now use a cycle of 14 days as a cycle. Under the Prevention of Disease and Control of Disease Ordinance, our health authority will issue instructions to spell out the latest requirements. So the current social distancing measures announced by the Secretary for Food and Health, they remain valid till the 15th of June, that is midnight on Wednesday. We say that we will keep the status quo. That means in the coming 14-day cycle, existing measures will be extended to the 29th of June. We cannot allow a lacuna with the transition of government, so we will liaise with the Chief Executive-elect office to see if there is a need to extend the measures to less than 14 days. We need to wait for the new government to take office before we know how they will deal with the social distancing measures. We will continue with our work in the meantime in the following areas. First, Given the drop of number of cases to a controllable level, the Center for Health Protection resumed the tracing of contact. Every day at 4:30, they tell you about cases of new cases in clusters or clusters without new cases. That's because of our contact tracing work. The other area of work is this. At the time when there was a huge number of cases, those who have been tested positive by RAT could make a report on a designated platform. They would then receive an isolation order. However, in recent days, we have identified a high number of false positive reports, sometimes as high as 30%. So from today onwards, RAT positive cases reported to us will be subject to verification. All of these cases will be subject to verification by way of a PCR. If it stays positive, then they will be treated as a positive case. This is to avoid confusion. If we announce the number of cases and then in a day or two we find that there are quite a number of false positive cases, then we would have to take them out. When the number of cases is low and the change of dozen cases might change our assessment of the situation. So we will now conduct PCR verification on all the reported cases. Contractors will deliver the relevant kit to your door. We will also enhance inspections and law enforcement. This will be conducive to proper control of epidemic, where you're required to wear your mask or use a vaccine pass, then you will have to do so. But there are people who have breached the regulations, so I ask law enforcement agencies to enhance their inspection work. The fourth area is the requirement of vaccine pass. Those with a third dose reached 60% last night. There is still room for improvement. And that is also the case for people who have only received their first and second doses. Some experts said that, well, perhaps when the vaccination rate is 95%, there may not be a requirement to wear masks. But what we see now is that there is still quite a long way to go. Another area of work is that we may consider enhancing testing on high-risk groups. For different groups, those with high exposure risk, they have to do a PCR daily. Students and teaching staff, before they go to school, will have to do a RAT every day. For those who work in the catering industry, they have to do a test once every 3 days. We will review the situation to see which group required enhancement in the testing requirement. Today in the evening, I will call an expert meeting to make a recent assessment, an updated assessment with 6 of our experts. We will also see what we need to follow up on. And shortly afterwards, we will call a high-level steering committee of the government to make preparations for a potential 6th outbreak, especially in relation to protecting our care homes.
All right. The floor is now open. If you want to ask questions, please raise your hand. And when your name is called, please introduce the media organization represented and use the mic. And please limit your questions to just 2.
From South China Morning Post. So I have 2 questions for you. Number one is that can you elaborate on what is your definition of an increasing trend? Because you've said that there are multiple indicators going up, but you cannot see a increasing trend yet. So can you elaborate on this point? And also, what would the government do to boost the vaccination rate of care homes? Because only about 56% and 14% had the second and third doses. Also, can you also confirm that you and other senior officials and EXCO members will be put under the week-long closed-loop arrangement by the end of this month to prepare for the president's visit? How would the rebound in cases going to affect the president's visit to Hong Kong, and how would this closed-loop arrangement affect the government's operation? Thank you.
Well, of the several questions, first of all is we have witnessed an increase in the number of positive cases since the beginning of June, that is this month, which gets us a little bit concerned. And as a result of the increase in the positive cases, and since we have allowed confirmed cases, that is infected people, to stay at home where appropriate for home isolation, so it is only natural or inevitable that some of the indicators will also go up. For example, the viral load in the sewage, because these people are living at home. So then the sewage coming out from their buildings will carry a higher viral load. But for the time being, it is a bit too early to say that we are now confronting a sixth wave of the COVID-19 epidemic, because it needs a lot more indicators in order to confirm the situation. So I'm convening a meeting with my experts later today is to listen to their advice and to see what other measures we have to put in place. So for the time being, I could not give you a categorical answer on when a trend will arise as a result of the current situation. But it is always essential for every one of us to be as prudent and cautious as possible in terms of the personal precautionary measures, that is wearing a mask, observing the social distancing measures, avoiding unnecessary crowd gathering, and so on. Particularly in the scheduled premises. So I have asked my law enforcement departments to step up their inspections and law enforcement on a daily basis. Now, we have introduced and implemented the government vaccination program since February last year. At every stage, we have rolled out various measures in order to boost the vaccination rates, and it has proven to be extremely essential in order to keep the severity of the infected people to as low a level as possible. That's why I said that despite the rise that we have seen in confirmed cases and other indicators, the hospital admissions and the number of patients who are critical or serious or require intensive care remain at a very low level. I'm sure this has something to do with the vaccinations that we have carried out in Hong Kong. So specifically about residential care homes for the elderly, I think all of us have learned a hard lesson of not being quick enough in making sure that our elderly in residential institutions were fully vaccinated before the fifth wave hit us. And there are a combination of factors. It is not just entirely the government's issue, but I'm sure you remember for a time, many of the relatives and family members of these elderly residents resisted the vaccination for their elderly people. Now, at the moment, I think so far we've got full cooperation from the homes. We still have this outreaching teams of medical and nursing staff to go out to visit the homes and to apply the jab. The reason why the rates could not increase as fast as one would like to see is because many of them are affected. So there are good reasons to ensure that there is a sufficient interval before we administer the vaccines. But I think so far I have not heard any particular problems or impediments from my team that is led by the Secretary for Civil Service, Patrick Nip, that we are facing problems in raising the vaccination rates in the residential care homes. Finally, I cannot confirm at this moment that there will be a visit by the President of our country. That's why I could not answer your specific questions. Thank you.
好，第二位記者。
Next question. This reporter in white. Good morning, I'm from Now. I'd like to pick up on the last question. In the event of our country's leader visiting Hong Kong, will the epidemic situation in Hong Kong affect this plan? Is there any plan? Can you confirm it? And if there is, can you confirm whether the closed-loop arrangement will be adopted for our officials to meet with the country's leader? Would it be safer? The second question relates to civil service pay adjustment. Now, having gauged public opinion for another week, do you believe that the pay hike should be pegged to the inflation rate in line with public opinion, or should the pay trend indicators be adopted in light of the civil servants' opinion? And regarding the June 4th vigil, for a second year, we continue to see the Victoria Park being closed off, and some members of the public had insisted on coming out to commemorate the event. For the first question, with the establishment of the new term of government and establishment and the 25th anniversary of the Hong Kong SAR's establishment, we are keenly looking forward to the country leaders' visit so that the country's leader can deliver remarks and give us direction on the future development of Hong Kong in the coming 5 years. We need to create the favorable conditions for this visit, but I am afraid I cannot tell you more at this stage. Regarding civil service pay adjustment, this is an annual pay adjustment mechanism that is well established, and the pay trend indicator is just one of the 6 factors to be considered, and it's not a mechanical exercise. We need to consider all these 6 factors in a dynamic manner, and the Executive Council, together with myself, will carefully consider these 6 factors in light of the current situation in Hong Kong and decide how these factors would react with each other before drawing up a conclusion. Again, I'm afraid I cannot disclose anything today, and it is not for me alone to say, because this decision will have to be made by the Executive Council. For the third question, again, this is not for me to comment. With the implementation of the Hong Kong National Security Law, the law and order situation is stable. However, like the police Commissioner, I would also like to remind everyone that there are still hazards and there are still lone wolf attacks being planned underground. And the police cracked down a case of a bomb manufacturing laboratory underground last year and this year. So for sensitive dates, some forces might make use of such events to create chaos. So the police must take action in order to keep Hong Kong people safe. And as the chief executive, I'll definitely support the police in taking this risk-based approach to keep Hong Kong people safe.
Questions from last named reporter, the lady in the middle. I'm from cable TV. First of all, the Foreign Correspondents Club said that they have made a request to renew the contract of their site. When will a decision made? The former chief executive, Carrie Lam, a few years ago said that they should not be given the privilege for the renewal. So would it be changed to an open tender? And there is also for chained retail store, it's said that they are going to be closed. Has something to do with the beef jerky, and it's a problem with the interruption of the supply chain. Would you relax the restrictions on importation of certain items? And we also see an increase in cases in clusters as well as from schools. Does it mean that these restrictions have been relaxed too quickly? Is there any chance that these measures will be tightened? The chain of retail stores is called IG Ichiban. There are government premises for leasing, renewal, and that's under the portfolio of the Government Property Agency. The second question, I believe that the Correctional Services Department will make adjustments, and if there is a need for changes, they will be happy to introduce it. For the third question, as I said at the beginning, that there are signs that cause us concern, but it has not reached a stage when we need to tighten the social distancing measures. We've been in an epidemic situation for over 2 years. From day one, I've been saying that a decision has to be made based on 3 areas: public health, economic development, and acceptability by the public. I believe that most Hong Kong people would agree that they need to see a path towards recovery. It is a long road, and it's going slowly. The third phase of relaxation or changes will not take place before the end of June. I fully understand that there are concerns from certain quarters of society. But at the same time, I do not want to stop students from going to school because it will have a huge impact on them. As I said at the beginning, today is the 7th of June. From now till the end of June, when I myself and my team will still be making decisions to fight the epidemic, we think that the best approach is to keep the status quo. Of course, barring any extremities, given how things stand, we will keep everything unchanged. That means that we will not tighten social distancing measures or measures to guard against importation of cases. But we will not relax them either. This is to ensure that we will proceed along the path of recovery. Thank you. That's the end of the press briefing. Thank you.